opposed to not being interviewed.
Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. If you are watching us on television or tuning in video streaming, AFR.net, you will see we've got a live feed, a video feed of the hearing taking place right now in Capitol Hill. Gregory Hicks currently speaking right now. We've got some sound bites from this morning, so enjoy that visual. We may break in occasionally and give you some live audio feed from the hearings as well. Explosive stuff being talked about this morning. I want to begin just setting the stage for this hearing this morning. I want to set the stage by playing a montage that Jeff Reed, our producer, audio engineer, put together that gives you kind of a rough timeline of how this whole thing developed. And you're going to hear these individuals in their own words, and then we're going to compare what you're hearing from people in this administration with the actual truth. So let's listen. Here's a Benghazi montage.
There are hundreds of protesters out in the street. They're right at the wall against the U.S. Embassy wall on the street that it's on, chanting slogans against the United States.
We are coming on the air because we have just learned that the U.S. ambassador to Libya has been killed. It happened overnight when angry militants stormed the U.S. consulate in Benghazi, Libya, and it appears the attack was inspired by an anti-Muslim film produced by an American-Israeli filmmaker living in California.
What happened this week in Cairo, in Benghazi, was a direct result of a heinous and offensive video.
Would you call the attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi an act of terrorism?
I have no doubt about that.
And that is what we saw play out in the last 2 weeks. It was a crude and disgusting video. It sparked outrage throughout the Muslim world.
There is enough proof that it is a pre-planned act of terrorism.
Now, I have made it clear that the United States government had nothing to do with this video.
I think it's up by down.
Here's what happened. You had a video that was released by somebody who lives here, sort of a shadowy character, who is an extremely offensive video directed at Muhammad and Islam.
Let me state very clearly, and I hope it is obvious, that the United States government had absolutely nothing to do with this video.
We understand why people take offense to this video because millions of our citizens are among them.
The United States government had absolutely nothing to do with this video.
The United States government had nothing to do with this video.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we bring home 4 Americans who gave their lives for our country and our values. We've seen the heavy assault on our post in Benghazi that took the lives of those brave men. We've seen rage and violence directed at American embassies over an awful internet video that we had nothing to do with.
So that gives you an idea of where the administration was at, the approach that they took right out of the chute on Benghazi. This was all about this video. It was hateful. It was anti-Islam. We're disgusted by it, President Obama says. Millions of our fellow citizens are disgusted. We apologize for it. We want to make it clear that we had nothing to do with the making of this movie. You heard that one audio excerpt of President Obama at the UN. Remember, he used the word 2 weeks? For 2 weeks now. So this is 2 weeks after the attack on Benghazi. Our president, the president of the United States, is lying to the world. He is lying to the entire world, not just lying to the citizens of the United States of America. He is lying to the entire world in the name of the United States, saying this was all about a video. This was all about some kind of movie review gone horrendously wrong. And now we know that this is absolutely flatly untrue, that this, what happened in Benghazi, had absolutely zero to do with that movie. And it's becoming clear, at least in my judgment, that they recognized as this thing developed, this was such a disaster, this was such a catastrophe, this revealed so much bungling, so much incompetence, so much lack of preparation, exposed so many failings. Hillary Clinton turning down increased requests for increased security, for instance. I've got one story right here from Town Hall talking about the threat levels in Benghazi. And it's clear from what Eric Nordstrom, he's one of the 3 men giving testimony this morning, He's one of the three men that gave testimony, and he made it very clear this morning that Secretary of State Hillary Clinton waived security requirements for the U.S. consulate in Benghazi despite extremely high risk levels. Now, Nordstrom detailed, this is from townhall.com, detailed that the Benghazi consulate was one of the rare locations with high and critical threats in all categories at the time of the terrorist attack on September 11th. So in other words, what he's saying is the U.S. does a risk assessment of all of their diplomatic locations around the world, of the kind of security risks there are, the kind of active threats that are ongoing, the kind of dangers that are posed, because that diplomatic location is in that particular spot. And what Nordstrom said this morning, and he is the diplomatic security officer and former regional security officer in Libya. So this guy was the regional security officer in Libya for the State Department. So he knew all about the security situation in Libya. And he is saying this morning, look, this compound in Benghazi, this was one of the rare diplomatic locations that we have anywhere in the world that had high and critical threats in every single category that we measure. In fact, he said the Benghazi consulate didn't meet any of the standards, none of the standards that were set by the Overseas Security Policy Board and the Secure Embassy Construction and Counterterrorism Attack of 1999. So this act passed in 1999 said, look, before we're going to put an embassy or a consulate or a compound anywhere, it's got to meet these security requirements. We can't put these things in places where our personnel are going to be in unusual risk. And what Nordstrom said is this Benghazi compound did not meet a single one of those standards, not one. Therefore, he says the only person who has the authority to waive security standards and to approve occupancy with such high threat levels is the Secretary of State. Now, at the time, here's some more details. At the time of the Benghazi attack, only a small number of the 264 overseas diplomatic posts were rated either high or critical in all of the threat categories. Our posts in Benghazi and Tripoli were 2 of the 14 posts rated either high or critical in all of the threat categories, and the only 2 facilities that met no OSPB or SECCA standards. So in other words, we shouldn't have had an embassy in Tripoli to begin with. We should not have had a compound in Benghazi to begin with. And by the way, the guy that's the mastermind of the attack on our compound is walking around Libya, walking around Benghazi free as a bird. Everybody knows who he is. And he was sipping Mai Tais on the patio of a local luxury hotel just a couple of days after the attack. He wasn't afraid of anybody. So when he hears President Obama, we are going to track these people down to the ends of the earth. We're going to turn over every rock. We're going to go into every nook. We're going to go every cave. We're going to go into every nook and cranny. We're going to haul this guy before the bar of justice. He said, I don't believe a word of it. I'm going to sit here and sip Mai Tais on the patio of this luxury hotel in Benghazi 2 days after I masterminded this attack. I'm not afraid of Obama. I know he's not serious. He's just blowing smoke at everybody. He's not going to do anything about that. It's just a completely empty threat. And so we find out from Nordstrom is that there never should have been a compound. There never should have been an embassy in Libya. It met none of the criterion for where you put diplomatic missions, and there never should have been anything in Benghazi. You know, I got an email from my sister last night reminding me of something that we've talked about before. You know, why did we have a compound in Benghazi to begin with? What was it doing there? If we know now that it didn't meet any of the specifications, there's 264 overseas diplomatic posts. 264. And the only two that did not meet a single standard of security and ability to protect were the ones in Tripoli and Benghazi. So the question is, why do you have one there when this is obviously insecure? And only Hillary Clinton, this is the important thing to understand, only Hillary Clinton can waive these security requirements. She's the only one that can do it. If she doesn't say, yeah, we'll put a compound in there, it can't happen. So this is directly on Hillary Clinton. This is in her portfolio. It's on her shoulders. The culpability ultimately for the fact that we had an insecure compound in Benghazi rests entirely upon the shoulders of Hillary Clinton. She's the only one who could call for this. And my sister reminded me in this email, look, you know, there's a strong possibility, and I believe this, in fact, to be the case. I believe this, in fact, to be the case, that we were running a gun-running operation out of the consulate, the compound in Benghazi. We were taking weapons that had been snatched from Gaddafi when he fell. Remember, we left all those stockpiles of weapons. I mean, shoulder-fired missiles and all kinds of weapons. We left them completely unguarded after we were responsible for taking Gaddafi out. And so people were driving up with their pickup trucks and loading up these weapons in Libya. And what I believe happened, and I think a lot of people would agree with this, that what was going on is that the Obama administration wanted to help the rebels in Syria that are trying to overthrow Assad, even though they're determined to impose Sharia law on Syria. If these rebels are victorious in Syria, they will make Syria a lethal threat to the security of the United States. Assad just kind of wanted to keep control of his people. He wasn't threatening the United States. He wasn't trying to develop a missile program to attack us. He hated us, but he wasn't going to do anything about it. But these Muslim Brotherhood, if they unseat Assad, they are going to be a threat, and those are the people that Barack Obama's helping. I sent him $123 million just a couple of weeks ago. And I believe that Chris Stevens was doing a fast and furious operation trying to get these guns that had been taken from Gaddafi, get them into the hands of these Muslim Brotherhood fanatics in Syria. And I think that's why this administration put that compound there in the first place. And that's why they've been so eager to cover their tracks, because this makes them look absolutely horrible. They're trying to deal with the fallout of Fast and Furious. Here is Fast and Furious on a lethal scale. As Huckabee said, this is worse than Watergate, because in Watergate, nobody died. Benghazi, 4 Americans are dead. It's all on Hillary Clinton. Back in 2.